Hey, Justin, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. How you doing?
I am fine. Are you fine aside from having to do media and, answer the same five questions over and over and over again?
I'm doing fine.
I
Thanks,
appreciate
thanks.
you taking the time, new album that was long awaited and all that. And the first question I have related to all that, a lot of special guests on the album. It's
Yeah.
almost like Carlos Santana, Supernatural, but for punk rock.
Almost.
Was it by design to have this many guests, or is it just an organic thing because people really collaborated in the last few years in the midst of COVID and all that?
Honestly, it was both. I mean, where it mostly came from was the fact that our previous record, 2020 Vision, came out right before the pandemic. So it came out and we did one tour in Europe on it. Then we played one show in North America, and then we were shut down.
Mhm.
And it is kind of a bum out when you work really hard on a record and then you can't tour on it. So we kind of thought, like, with this record, rather than have the possibility of another shutdown, because when we were making it, we were like, will there be another shutdown? Won't there? We thought the chances were pretty slim, but who knows, right? We were living in crazy times. So
Right.
um our thinking was, let's release songs little by little, because that way, if we're able to be out playing shows, at least people will have access to some of the music from the record. And if there's a shutdown or whatever, and the record gets shelved or whatever could happen, or just the shows get canceled, at least we'll have been able to play some of the songs live. So what we were doing when it originally is when we were going out on tour, the
Mhm.
songs that had been released, we knew, like, we could walk on stage and play them. And that's how as we were releasing the songs, we had a new song that we were adding to the set. Um, but with that idea of releasing the songs little by little, our bass player Chris was like, this is sort of like a hip hop, like, or like a pop thing where it's like you're releasing songs. We should see if why don't we make features and see if people want to actually be on the songs as we release them. That would be really cool, and it would kind of keep it fresh for us. I mean, we've been a band
Mhm.
almost 30 years, so, like, all right, what can we do that's different? How can we put out a record and make it more interesting than something that we've done recently? So he sort of threw that idea out there. Um, Initially, though, I don't think that initially we were going for 8 people. I think what happened was, the first track, was clearly, like, felt like in a track influenced by Rise Against. We've
Mhm.
been friends with them since, forever. So it was just like, all right, well, the sounds, this is definitely a Rise Against influence track. Let's ask Tim if he wants to be on. Let's embrace it. And Tim's an old friend, so that was an easy phone call. Um, and then with the next track, there was a part in it that to me sounded like Silverstein, and we've done a lot of touring with Silverstein. I was like, oh, guys, what if we asked Shane? And again, it was like, he's a friend. It was easy. At that point, it had become fun.
Mhm.
And so it just kept going. And so for the songs where we were like, oh, this makes me think of this person, for example, on Never Ever, I was like, this song is about what Stacey D from Bad Cop is about, and it would be so cool to have her on it. So it's like, let's ask her. Or on Victory or Death, it sounded so much like an anthem, and I like the best anthem band is Die Totenhosen from Germany. So I was like, let's ask Campino from Die Totenhosen. So it sort of took on an organic, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It just kept building.
Yeah, it's not every band that can have members of, say, Minor Threat and Killswitch Engage and
Yeah,
Totenhosen on the same album. So that
yeah,
kind of speaks to the versatility of your band. And as you mentioned before, almost 30 years. I'd imagine at year 18, you didn't want to be thought of as an old band, but
yeah,
almost at
yeah,
30,
yeah,
there's we're a classic band. In other
yeah.
words, getting older is better, I would have to assume.
Yeah, I've really embraced it, honestly. I mean, I'm almost 50, and, like, honestly, I think so much of it is attitude, and I still love to get on stage and, like, I don't work super hard at staying in shape, but I work at it enough because my favorite thing to do is go on stage and play the way I want to play. We're not a band that just stands up there and plays, which
Right.
is fine for some people, but what I get a charge out of is like going up and getting after it like I did when I started. And honestly, like you're when you're older, you're wiser. Like there's a lot about it that's really good, especially if you're in decent health, which I'm lucky to be.
Mhm.
And we're just better at doing this whole thing. We're better at being a band. We get along better as friends. We have it figured out because we have a lot of experience. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. And I think that there has always been kind of like, I remember being young and going out with some bands that would probably be considered like old bands, and they kind of felt old. It wasn't like they were doing anything innovative or anything that I thought was interesting. And that's always kind of stuck with me. I didn't want to be a band that just got old and never tried anything new, and that's why I kind of like that we've been able to cross some genres, like you're mentioning, like, a member of Killswitch Engage, or then reaching back in the old school to Bad Religion or Minor Threat, and it's like, um, even just musically, like, we have like our roots on the record of like a Work and Struggle is a track that, like, it's just a song I would have written when I was 20, but also I've, been exposed to a lot of music over the years, and just think it's more interesting to cross over and try some other things that we would have never tried. I mean, we just did a 5-day like acoustic run through Germany right before the record came out, and did it in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do in the past, just because we've grown as musicians. And
Sure.
I don't know, I don't want to be afraid of new. I never want to be that way. And even like I remember being on Warped Tour and like the mid 2000s, when like the screamo thing was hitting Warped Tour really big, and kind of hanging out with a lot of people from bands my age and that kind of thing. And people like just ripping on these kids, like complaining, like, oh, they're fucking screaming and the fucking heavy guitars and stuff. And I was just like, man, you guys sound like a bunch of fucking old dads. Like, this sucks. Like, good for these kids. Like, they're creating their own thing. I think it's exciting. Like, I've never been so, like, I looked at it and I was like, this is fucking dope. Like, how can we incorporate some of this into what we do?
Yeah.
So I've just never really been afraid of growing older. I just think it's your attitude about, what you embrace as you go along.
That makes sense. Metal, was that ever part of your vernacular? Because everyone thinks of you and they think of punk rock, and
Yeah.
obviously there's hardcore influence on this record. But were you initially a Van Halen, Motley Crue, Kiss person before you got into punk rock?
Well, it's funny you put it that way, because when you put it that way, yes, I liked all those bands. I grew up like my oldest brother loved Kiss. I think I was like 11 when Van Halen 5150 came out, and I won it at a school contest actually, and I loved it, man. I fucking jammed to Dreams like all the time. So I loved classic rock. And I still do. Like Boston, the first two Boston records are two of my favorite records ever.
Yeah.
So I always loved like playing blues guitar type leads, like that was an influence from just classic rock. And also, like, I was a big Social Distortion fan when I was young. That really brought me into like being a singer and playing guitar. So
Yeah.
but as far as when we started the band, I was really just focused on playing punk. I wanted to like play songs like The Clash and like Rancid, and metal. I thought metal was pretty stupid, to be honest. Like, I just was like, it's scary, it's spooky, it's glamour. That didn't really interest me. As I got older, I realized like, wow, these are fucking great songs, and so now, like, I never was, and I was really not attracted to like the Metallica type metal, because I just didn't really like the sound of it.
Mhm.
But more and more, like, I've been more open to it, and just there's definitely like that influence has crept in, which is interesting to me because I never thought that would happen when I first, when we made Die for the Government, for example.
Yeah, I find that whatever the music that the person does for their day job is
Yeah.
usually has little to do with what they actually listen to or
Yeah.
what made them want to start. That random stupid example, the guitar player from Creed put out that Sinatra covers album. Did you hear that?
Mental, right? Yeah, like 100%, and like, yeah, I think even like when we did this acoustic thing, and it was seated, and like I think it just blew people's minds, like, what the fuck is happening? But
Yeah,
then they saw it and they're like, oh, okay, this works, it's like a folk thing, but not what people were expecting.
great to hear all that, that there's such positivity and growth over time and aging like a fine wine, I guess you would
Yeah.
say. Well,
Amen. Thank you.
down to the last two questions here before I let you go. The
Sure.
first
Yeah.
one is touring with Flogging Molly. Now, you mentioned Die Totenhausen being the anthem band, but
Yeah.
Flogging Molly is absolutely an anthem band. That's a rowdy crowd. It's not a case of, hey, are we competing against the other bands on stage? But it's also, we're playing to a different audience in a way. Does touring with a high energy band like that change up how you put the set list together?
To be honest, for us, it does. And I mean, I think part of what the reason that we just sort of became more and more of a diverse band, and we still have like Die for the Government, Turncoat, Press Corps in our set, and they're like staple songs, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, we can go in a lot of different directions. And even like, for example, Victory or Death on the new record, it's like a very folk oriented song. It almost has like an Irish feel to it. We
Mhm.
worked really hard to keep it a rock song, but it definitely skews Irish folk punk. But what happened with us, I think about pretty early on for us, was we played European festivals. And at those festivals, the lineups were so diverse. So we might be playing like with Slayer headlining one night, and then we were playing with like, um, just trying like MGMT headlining another night, where the genre is just so wide. And during that time, we really learned to cater a set to like the audience we were playing for. And because quite frankly, we wanted to have a good set, and I think it's cool to go up there, and you're going to be different than those bands no matter what you do, but it's a
Right.
question of like, what can we do to best connect? So over the years, I think that led to more of the band diversifying in just this kind of songs we were writing, because we were having these, multiple influences, especially live. It's so much more impactful when you play with Arcade Fire. Like it has such an impact on you and what you're gonna write later versus if you just heard their song on the radio. You see it, you feel it, you're like, holy fuck, how do we do that? Um so playing with Flogging Molly, yeah, I mean, we have crafted a set a little bit more in the direction that we think will connect better with their audience. But for us, we're lucky because my goal when we write a song is to play a song I like to play.
Mhm.
So what's nice is it sometimes brings back a song that we haven't been playing for a long time. So I like that. And just a little back story on Anti-Flag and Flogging Molly. One of Flogging Molly's very first tours was Warped Tour, and around, I think it was 2001 or two, somewhere in there.
Was that the one with
Yeah.
Green Day on it?
Yes, it
Okay,
is actually.
2000. I
Yeah.
was at that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but we shared a side stage on that with Hot Water Music and Flogging Molly. So that summer we became really good friends, and then we headlined a tour the next year, and our opener was Flogging Molly. So we kind of have this history that goes way back. We've been friends for almost as long as they've been a band. And so it's exciting. It's fun to play with them all the time. And my dad is from Ireland, so I really grew up around Irish music and Irish folk music. And the first time I heard Flogging Molly, I was like, this is the band I've been waiting for. So you know, it's always exciting and fun for me to play with them.
And Fastway was also a great band. Dave may not like to hear that, but there you go.
Dave hates Fastway.
Dave hates Fastway, but Fastway was great, but not the point.
No, he's so funny about it. It's so funny you bring that up because I was literally thinking about this the other day and I was like, man, he is just so against that band.
It is, but you know, before I ask my last question, so many of our favorite bands from the punk genres, they had the hair band. Like, for example,
Yeah.
Chris Shiflett, you know about his hair
Sure,
band,
yeah.
Lost Kittens.
Right.
They all had that band. Lit was a
Yeah.
band called Razzle. They all
Yeah,
liked it.
yeah.
Well,
That's
the last
great.
question, do you have a TV recommendation you could pass along? I like to ask because the wife and I go, hey, we need a new show. We just finished it. So you go to the people who are literate and cultured, such as Justin.
Well, so do you mean like a fun pop culture, like TV? Like
Whatever
for
you think we
news,
should be watching.
well, for news, like I watch Democracy Now! Almost every day, 5 days a week, and it's an hour-long independent news program.
Mhm.
And you know, some of it, like honestly, I think most of the reporting is incredible. Every once in a while, it misses for me, but what I really love about it is they just cover stories that you're just not going to see on CNN or anywhere else. Like it's amazing, like how much diversity is in an hour, and especially their 10-minute headlines. It like they open up 10-minute headlines. So for people who are like, what's going on in the world that's not on Fox or CNN or MSNBC or whatever,
Mhm.
it kind of amazes me to see that there's so much happening in the world that we just never hear about. As far as TV shows, I mean, I honestly don't have like that hidden sleeper show. I don't know. Actually, my best friend and I were just talking about the fact that we never finished the show Supernatural. There's like 14 seasons and I love it. It's like, it's a really fun show. It's ridiculous. It's goofy. It's about like, you know, demons and supernatural shit and people chasing demons and trying to kill them. And it's sort of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you
Right.
know, without Buffy.
CW original, which
Yes.
Rob
Yeah.
from Party Down created, I think.
I'm not sure. You're deeper in than I am there, but I will say that we decided, hey, let's get together, let's watch the final like couple seasons of Supernatural because we never watched it. You know, like a lot of people, obviously, like I've watched Game of Thrones and like all of the new Star Wars reboots and like all the mainstream stuff that you've heard of. I've seen it and love it. So I go hard for a lot of the pop culture series out there, but I don't have like, but if you just want something like really mindless that's fun, and Supernatural is a good one.
Outro.